Everyone always has some niche strategy that they always want to come back to and revisit, even if it's not particularly relevant or not particularly good. And my one, for now at the very least, is Lair of Darkness. Now, I'm a big fan of this card, mainly because back when I started learning the TCG in earnest, I was initially on a game called Legacy of the Duelist, in which Infernoid Lair of Darkness was one of my main decks that I was using to learn the game. So I have a bit of a soft spot for Lair of Darkness. Really, really fun card, and this deck in particular is an evolution upon the deck profile that we uploaded last time. This is an actual branded Lair of Darkness deck, taking full advantage of the fact that Lair of Darkness will allow cards like your Branded Beast, like your Baldrake, like your Golden Burst, like your Wicked Warden, to tribute off your opponent's monsters for their various different effects, as well as the ability for your field spell to change all monsters on the field to dark, making your Fallen of Albaz fusion summon even more applicable, making your Super Polymerization even more powerful. And generally speaking, just sort of broadening the aspect of what you can do with Branded. Is it worth the slot? Like, if you're trying to build like a super competitive Branded deck, Lair of Darkness isn't the way to do it. But if you're a fan of Lair of Darkness, this is a really fun idea in terms of how you can work the strategy into an actual meta competitive deck, and it is a blast. It's a lot of fun. Again, I was playing this not only by myself but also in the voice chat in the Discord. It's an absolute blast. We're going to be doing a card for card at the end for anyone who's unfamiliar with it. Again, it's Branded plus Lair of Darkness, so most people should be fairly familiar with each individual aspect if they've been watching our videos. But either way, we're going to cover it off at the end regardless. We've got a few replays lined up, especially replay number 1, Golden. Watch the replays to get an idea of how it works. See the deck profile at the end, try it yourself, let me know what you think. Let's get into it. Alrighty, getting into game 1 here. We are going second, which usually is quite a bad thing for this deck, but our opponent doesn't actually have any plays. So this is a good opportunity for us to show the deck off a little bit. We're going to go Aurima, the Wicked Warden here, grabbing the Lair of Darkness directly from deck to hand, activating it, normal summoning Alibra, the Jester of Despia. That's when our opponent goes for the Havness. It's not that they didn't have any plays, it's just they were willing to wait until our turn to get gaming. So they're going to mill a bunch of cards off their Havness. We're going to grab Branded Regained. They milled Tearlament Scream, which will allow them to grab Celiac from their deck. We're going to activate Branded Regained here, going for Branded Fusion. He's going to chain that Maxi here. Now, I actually unironically forgot that this was turn 2, so I didn't press for Lethal here because I forgot that I could even attack. But we summon out the Magnomet before Maxi resolves because I know that I'm not going to do any crazy amount of summoning here. We summon out Albion just so that when we do eventually tribute it for something like the Baldrake, it will generate us more advantage. They're going to go Kildo here to shuffle back the Lubellion. I'm assuming they thought that I was going to try and summon the Lubellion under Maxi, which I wasn't going to, but I can see where they're coming from with that Kildo. Shuffle one back, draw on the Call by the Grave, fantastic draw. We're going to go Battle Phase, taking out the Havness, swinging for 25. So we're getting some damage on the board. Going in the RM phase, then we're going to get the grab, the Kaiser Glider Golden Burst, which is huge. Kaiser Glider Golden Burst will allow us at any point during their turn to tribute one of their monsters, which comes up right now because of Super Polymerization fusing away 2 of our monsters into Dragostapelia. Dragostapelia can be a right pain sometimes, but we're going to summon back the Magnomet from the graveyard thanks to Branded Regained, and our Call by the Grave is going to negate his monster in the graveyard. Kaiser Glider also tributing off the Dragostapelia before it can negate any of our cards. So it's completely gone, and it's tributed as cost. He does not get a chance to chain its effect to anything. Bringing back the Magnomet as well. Magnomet gets searching. Kelbeck gets negated. There comes another copy of Havness. Havness summoning itself back out. We're going to activate a Maxi of our own this time. So we're going to start drawing cards instead of our opponent. Equalizing the table a little bit here. They're going to mill some cards. Magnomet, search during the end phase. They're going to go for Merly. That's when we're going to go for the Baldrake here. Baldrake, of course, banishing the Merly to summon itself out to the field. Completely dominating the tier matchup here. We're going to go Branded Regain, shuffling Merly back into their deck to draw a card. They end their turn. That face down has to be Celiac. We're going to grab Diabolos during the end phase off of Magnomet, as well as Branded Fusion off of our Albion, giving our opponent a little token. So, getting into our turn, it's pretty much game over. They're going to try and get our Baldrake by sending their Havness. Havness then activates in the grave. We're going to go Call by the Grave, and I'm pretty sure that's when our opponent decides that they would rather go and hug a cactus than continue fading us in this duel. Let's see. Yes, and they explode. That's it. GG's. That's just Byzitals for you, man. Like, Byzitals in general are just so damn powerful. You start combining that with Lair of Darkness to tribute your opponent's cards, combining that with Branded Fusion to summon out these powerful fusion monsters, and all of the advantage you can generate off of Branded Regained and Albion and all of these cards, it quickly becomes very overwhelming for many decks to deal with. As you saw here, even top tier tournaments, they didn't have a top tier hand, I'll give you that much. But it's not as if they had nothing, right? They had 2 copies of Havness, they had Maxi, they you know, they had cards. Let's get into game 2. With this game, there's actually one particular thing I want to show off. We were going second again. We were just getting pretty unlucky when it came to coin tosses, but we were getting pretty lucky when it comes to our opening hands. Having the Maxi available to us is pretty handy. So they're going to summon out Rhinoheart, that's grand, we'll draw a card, they're going to go Rhinoheart Engraved, discarding a card to summon itself, discarding Sulliek, we get to draw again, they're going to mill a card from their deck, Sulliek then searching their deck for another monster. So they're just trying to generate a little bit of advantage for themselves here, makes total sense. They're going to grab a Havness to use during our turn, so they don't need to operate under Max C, milling a Havness as well, going to activate its effect, but we're going to go for the Baldric here, and I mainly want to use this replay as a highlight to how powerful the Baldric in particular becomes in this build, right? Baldric is like your boss monster almost. Gonna draw in the Diabolos, that's fine. We're gonna activate Lair of Darkness. Also, quick question. Diablos or Diabolos? You tell me down below. They're gonna go for Meta Noise here, trying to flip our Arima face down. We're gonna chain our Ash Blossom to that to try and negate it, but they've got Crime. They will be resolving that Meta Noise. We do not get a choice in the matter. So that's why they were happy enough to give us a few cards. They have plenty of outs. They're going to mill a Rhinoheart here. Rhinoheart activating in the grave. We've got another Max C. Good luck to you, good sir. You're not getting to play this game for free this time. Absolutely not. They're going to summon the Rhinoheart here, pitching a Havness to grave. Of course, they're going to activate the Havness in the grave, and this is where it gets spicy. So they're going to go Rhinoheart to mill another card. I'm assuming they're just going to use that as the fusion material, milling a Merle, shuffling cards back. Going into Kaleidoheart, now we're able to use the effect. Right, so Bestial Lubellion, right, you banish one of your opponent's cards from their graveyard to summon it, right, so there's one interruption. Now the Bestial Baldric, upon summon of an extra deck monster, contribute one of your opponent's monsters to banish their monster. So Bestial Baldric becomes 3 interruptions in 1 on the turn it's summoned. Tier limits just cannot keep up with that. They just cannot keep up with this deck. Baldric absolutely shuts them down. And that tributing your opponent's card as well, it doesn't count as being sent to the graveyard by a card effect because it's cost, which means it doesn't trigger Kaleidoheart to come back. It doesn't trigger Real Kalos to come back. It doesn't trigger Kikalos' mill effect. It doesn't trigger any of their fusions. Doesn't do any of that. Tributing them for cost to activate your effects does not trigger any of the tier limits effects. So if nothing else, this deck is about as anti-tier limit as it could possibly get, right? Let's get in the game 3. Alright, getting into game 3, again, going second, we just could not win a coin toss to save our lives here. They're going to draw a card off of Upstart Goblin, going into Pot of Duality, meaning 2 cards in our hand, automatically dead, finished, finito. They're going to drop Max C then off the top of their deck. They're going to set 3 pass. Now this is not ideal, of course. This doesn't seem to be a monster-based strategy, which sort of conflicts with the entire point of our deck. They're going to go Max C in response to our branded opening. That's entirely fine. Branded opening, we're going to drop the max, I believe one of our maxes. Yes, our opponent doesn't seem to be in the mood to special summon. We just add Alibert to hand and then normal summon it, so he doesn't get to draw any cards. Set 2, into the battle phase, inflict 1800 points of damage, and we're just going to end on that. We don't really fancy giving him more cards, but he's got the Runic Flashfire face down. He's playing Runic. I don't know why he didn't do that frame 1, but I guess he just didn't want to. He's got the Runic Fountain now. Runic Fountain's going to start generating him a lot of advantage. We don't have Lair here, meaning we can't really tribute off his cards. We're going to preemptively go for Max C. He's going to go Runic Tip here, grabbing Runic Destruction from the deck, banishing Magnomet from the top of the deck. That is a very unfortunate banish for us. They're going to go Runic Destruction, targeting the Super Poly. We might as well flip it up here. We're going to drop the Branded Fusion, fusing together the cards on the field. We're going to fuse these 2 into Drago Stapelia. That, at the very least, will give us the ability to negate any of his outcoming monsters. They're going to go Runic Fountain here, shuffling back 3 of their Runic spells to draw 3. I don't know who designed that card, but that is not okay. Dimensional Fissure is going to start banishing anything sent to the graveyard. This is not looking like a good time to us, but we're going to try our best. We're going to go Baldric, banishing the driver from the graveyard so we can summon it. They're going to go with Super Poly of their own. And with that, we lose. I know that seems like a preemptive surrender. With Dimensional Fissure on the board, GG's, we lose. Done. Finito. Very unfortunate. There was no real way for us to play through Fissure there, unfortunately. And again, the matchup, the grind game, it was simply going to outpace us. I'm not in the mood to sit and watch Runic play quick play spells for 25 minutes until they eventually beat us. That's not my speed, Chief. But there you go. It's not impervious, of course. Any decks that typically stray away from monsters, the strategy is rather weak to back row based strategies, which aren't too common at the minute, but they are definitely in existence. So I wanted to highlight that as a possibility. Mass Banishment, Floodgates, things like that, Dimensional Fissure, D-Shifter, Herald of the Arclight all hurt this deck a lot as well. So I just wanted to throw possibilities out there for what to keep an eye out for, so that you can maybe learn to play around them or learn to keep an eye out for them, as well as just showing the deck at its weakest too. I don't like showing only the strong points of a deck. It feels fake. I want to show the weak points as well. But either way, let's get into the deck profile, if I could speak English words, and we'll talk about it card for card. Alrighty. So again, disclaimer, I'm biased when it comes to this deck. I think this deck is a ton of fun. I don't think it's particularly good overall in like a variety of matchups, and by that I don't mean that it's bad. By that I mean that there are definitely better options you can pick up to play in the meta, right? That's a no-brainer. I shouldn't need to clarify that, right? You should be able to put that one together yourself. But if you like Lair of Darkness, or if you like these sort of off-meta strategies or these sort of unique twists, this is 100% a deck you should try. One, because it's ridiculously cheap, man. The only real additions we're making to this are what? SRs? 3 Lair of Darkness, 3 Arima, 3 Kaiser, the Golden Glider. That's the entire Lair of Darkness package. Yeah, that's literally, and sorry, Diabolos himself, but Diabolos doesn't even come up. You can take it, oh, didn't mean to do that. You can take Diabolos out of the deck. He literally doesn't need to be here. He's there for trimming, because I mean, look at this card art, right? It's fucking beautiful card. But he's trimming, right? You don't need him there. Most Lair of Darkness decks don't even play him, so you can take him out, and then all of your additions just become SRs. So it's a pretty affordable alternative method of playing branded, because I know the original branded strategy has a ton of URs in it. So let's break the deck down. We're going to talk about the deck in detail. We are going to remove Diabolos for the sake of this profile, because like I said, you don't need it. It never really comes up, and it is a UR. So if you don't have it, I wouldn't recommend crafting it for the deck if you just want to test it out. So we're going to leave it out of the profile for now. So starting with the hand traps and interruptions, we got the triple Maxi, triple Ash Blossom, double Cult by the Grave, single Crossout Designator. You could lump Super Poly into this group as well. However, I feel like that would be foolish. I think Super Poly alongside Lair of Darkness is an amazing combination. So I think if you're going to be playing Lair of Darkness, to take full advantage of the benefits it's giving you, Super Poly is a must if you have it. If you don't have it, don't pull your hair out. It's fine. But Super Poly, I think, is pretty damn important. If you don't have Super Poly, craft it. It's such a good card in so many different strategies, and it's only going to get better the more decks that are able to compete with tier. So it sort of fell off a little bit in the tier meta, but now with Branded and Sword Soul and Sprite getting better, and with the release of Garura into the game, Super Poly is only going to get better. So if you don't have it, it's definitely a card you're not going to regret crafting. So I'm just throwing that out there. So getting into the deck, we'll start with the Lair of Darkness package, since we're talking about it so much. We got the triple Arima, the 1 copy of the Kaiser Glider Golden Burst, and we got triple copies of the Lair of Darkness. That's pretty much it. That's the only additions you're making. Arima can discard itself to grab a copy of the Lair of Darkness. It's basically just 6 copies of Lair of Darkness. On occasion, he also has an on-summon effect, where on-summon you can tribute a dark monster. If you tribute himself, you can draw a card, or if you tribute something else, you will search your deck for any dark monster with 2,000 or more defense. That is any of your Bystials. So this guy can tribute another card in the field to search your deck for a Bystial. That's pretty good. Why is that pretty good? Because it works in combination with the field spell. What does Lair of Darkness actually do? Well, it changes all face-up monsters on the field to dark, first of all, right? That's number 1. Secondly, once per turn, you can tribute one of your opponent's monsters to activate one of your card effects as if you controlled it. So you can tribute one of their cards as cost to activate an effect. So Arima is able to tribute one of your opponent's monsters to search your deck for a Bystial monster. That's really good. That is really good. Worst case scenario, and again, that you know, you can look at it and you can say, well, that effect only works if you have Lair of Darkness. Well, yeah, if you don't have Lair of Darkness, then you use this first effect to discard him to grab a copy. So I think Arima is definitely a really, really solid card. Absolutely playing 3 of this. Absolutely playing 3 of the field spell as well. Really solid. And there's a bunch of ways of abusing that little once per turn tribute effect in this deck. That's why I like it so much. The next one, of course, is the Kaiser Glider. We're playing this for a reason. It can special summon itself as a quick effect from your hand to your field by tributing a monster. Because of Lair of Darkness, you can tribute one of your opponent's monsters to summon this to your field. It's almost like a quick play kaiju, so it is, which is absolutely disgusting. So Kaiser Glider is really good for that. We're only playing 1 because it is searchable in this deck off of Magnomet. Magnomet can search your deck for any dragon during the end phase. One of the ones you will most likely grab will either be the Baldrake, number 1, or number 2 if you already have Baldrake, then you want to grab the Kaiser Glider. It's just a really, really solid card. Getting into the Bystials then. The Bystials, again, we're just maxing out on Bystials as much as we possibly can because that's sort of the whole point of the deck, right? We got the 1 Magnomet, 3 Saronir, 1 Drissworm, 3 Baldrake, 3 Lobelion. We've got the Branded Regained and Branded Beast as well. We're just maxing out on the Bystial package. Bystials are just really good, especially into tier, and that's sort of what this deck is built to do. It's built to counter tier to an extent. Of course, there are other big decks in the meta, like, you know, you might want to take into consideration the likes of Sprite or anything else, but Tier Limits is one of the biggest decks, the biggest deck at the minute, so it's one of the ones we have to give the most attention when deck building. So we play as many of these guys as we can get our hands on. You can cut it down a little bit if you really wanted to, but I very seldom have an issue playing this many of them. I very rarely wish that I had other cards in my hand. These guys are all great. You can maybe cut the Bystial Lobelion down to 2 and maybe Saronir down to 2 if you wanted to play a couple more hand traps, but you already have so much room for hand traps. And the branded package then, pretty standard stuff. 2 copies of Alibur. Alibur searches your Branded Fusion. 2 copies of Opening. Special summons Alibur, which searches for your Branded Fusion. And then two copies of the Branded Fusion itself. So basically just 6 copies of Branded Fusion. We also did slide in a little Branded Retribution because we were finding ourselves in positions where we wanted like an Albion search target and we didn't have anything else. You don't have to play this. I mean, there's no real issues with it because it has a really good graveyard effect as well. So I think this card's really solid. It basically just negates the effect of a card that would summon something by bouncing back an Albaz related fusion. It can be set to your field directly by Albion the Branded Dragon, which is why we play it. And lastly then, the last sort of core card we're playing is, of course, Super Polymerization. Because the Lair of Darkness changes everything on the field to dark, that means Super Poly is going to be able to fuse all of your opponent's monsters away into the likes of Trifu Vertum, Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, Dragostapelia, even Garura and Mud Dragon of the Swamp become easier to summon against a lot of strategies because you're removing attributes from the equation, which is really, really good. Of course, if your opponent's playing dragons or anything like that as well, the Borreload Furious Dragon is pretty useful for that as well, fusing away their dragons into DPA at home, which is basically what this guy is. So Super Poly, I think it's pretty core, 100%. I think this card is core. You can play the deck without it, for sure, but you would be putting yourself at a needless disadvantage. Getting into the extra deck, we have a solid handful of Super Poly targets here. We'll cover those first. Mud Dragon of the Swamp, 2 monsters with the same attribute but different types. Same attribute and same type, different names. 1 Cyber monster and 1 Link monster. This is specifically to help you deal with Sprite. So this can fuse together like a Sprite Elf and a Masquerena before your opponent even has a chance to use them. So this is like an anti-Sprite Super Poly target. Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, 2 Darks. Dragostapelia, a Dark and a Fusion. Borreload Furious Dragon, 2 Dark Dragons. Now, this card you're more likely to summon off of Lobelion rather than Super Poly, but with Bystials being everywhere, your opponent is also going to be playing a lot of Dark Dragons. So you can summon Borreload Furious Dragon, and he's a pretty solid interruption. And lastly then, we have Trifu Vertum. Trifu Vertum, of course, being 3 dark monsters on the field. Trifu Vertum's one of your bigger ones because you're changing every monster to dark, you're significantly more likely for your opponent to have 3 monsters on the field for you to fuse them all the way into Triple Vertum, who not only removes more monsters as cost, he's got more attack and defense points, and he can negate the summon of an extra deck monster, which is pretty awesome. So he's like an interruption as well, which is pretty awesome. So Triff is definitely the one you want to be summoning most of the time. Most of the rest of these guys are primarily just in case you don't have Lair of Darkness up. Now our actual legitimate targets, we have Albion, Lubellion, Mirror Jade, and Albulanatus. Albion, of course, you'll summon this by activating Branded Fusion, sending Fallen of Albaz and a light monster, which will be your Bysital Lubellion. It then on summon will fusion summon again for you, this time into Lubellion. Lubellion will discard a card to conduct another fusion summon, shuffling 2 cards back to bring out your Mirror Jade, shuffling itself and your Fallen of Albaz. Now you've got a Mirror Jade on the field and Lubellion in the graveyard. You can summon Lubellion by tributing off your Albion. Albion gets Searching, Lubellion gets Searching, standard branded plays. Again, you've all seen that play a million times before because you've all played against branded. That's just what branded does. And lastly then, Vertanaconda for your branded fusion. If you're able to just put any 2 effect monsters on board, there's a Mirror Jade for you right there. And that's the deck. Again, it's nothing super complicated. I'm not going to spend too much time repeating cards and messages that everybody already knows. Again, we all know how branded works. We've all seen it a million times. I've uploaded a million videos on it. If you want more detailed breakdowns and everything of the branded cards, you can check previous videos. But it's really, really straightforward. If you're interested in this style of deck, or you just want a different sort of speed, different pace, pick it up. Again, it is a lot of fun, at least to me. It does sort of harken back to my legacy of the Duelist days, so maybe I've got some rosy tinted glasses on. But either way, that's my take on it. That's my build. If you have suggestions, ideas, throw them down below. Subscribe if you haven't. Like the video if you haven't. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.